So here's the front, and then here's the back. Very special moment. The whole ceremony is just very meaningful for me. If you want to do science of impact, you're generally going to break ideas people already have, and that's inevitably hard, and inevitably people think differently. And I left for Google around 2014. If we built something like 50 qubits, we could then do this quantum supremacy experiment. It was a good milestone along the way. 50 qubits to 100 qubits. When would you get to 1,000,000 qubits? I'm going to be dead. Okay. The most important one is that right now they're fabricating devices using, I would say, kind of an academic style process. So we want to completely change the way we're doing it. I think we're the only people who are really focusing on it because it's so different and it's not clear it's going to work. But we think for the health of our qubits, you have to do something bold.
So talking about quantum computers, you joined Google Quantum AI Lab and led the team to reach quantum supremacy.
Right.
Would you please share the experience with us and what exactly quantum supremacy is and why was it important?
Just not to skip some history, I started the work on qubits in the late 1990s when I was in a government lab, NIST, at Boulder. In fact, Dave Wineland, working on ion trap quantum computing, was down the hall. Yes. So the idea was in the air there. And we definitely was motivated by that. And then we had done some initial experiments, which are very nice there. Then I went to UC Santa Barbara in 2004 and started a nice research there. And then we and a bunch of other people around the world were just bringing forth that. And I would say around 2010 or so, we started understanding what a big quantum computer would look like using something called a surface code for error correction. That was a big event because at that point I finally understood what a quantum computer might look like. And then we were just doing experiments. But at that point, I really started to think, what did we need to do to build this? And around that time, Google got interested in quantum computing. I wrote a paper with people from Google for a D-Wave, a quantum annealer, and got to know them. And then, Google started getting interested in building in quantum computers, so he contacted me. And that seemed like a good move because we could have more resources from a big company like Google to put into a long-term effort to build a quantum computer. So I left for Google around 2014. I was still a professor and I still had students, so they were doing some student projects. But we were starting to build up the experiment at Google.
Actually, that was the collaboration between USBC and Google together. You worked together.
Yeah, we worked together, and there was a collaboration in the sense that there were students. Still, I didn't want to just leave my students. So the students were funded by Google and doing research. But it was really bringing the research to to Google at the time. And we started a new lab, and we started working on building the qubit array using this surface code architecture at the time. And that's what we were focusing on. And then along the way, the theory group there saw that in what we were trying to build, if we built something like 50 qubits, we could then do this quantum supremacy experiment. And that, to me, was a really good experiment to test out the ideas. So it was a good milestone along the way. And what was really important about that experiment is it showed that a quantum computer could be powerful. It didn't do necessarily anything traditionally useful, but just to show the power. And I would say, when we moved to Google, I would say there was some skepticism from the senior executives whether, this small little physics experiment could be better than a big Google data center, right? That sounds kind of crazy to do that. So there was a lot of, I'd just say, put pressure on myself to do the experiment and drive that forward, because if we wanted to have a good funding at Google and really build up the project as we needed to, we needed to show that experiment. And fortunately, everyone worked really hard, and we were able to do a variety of things, designing the qubits better to get that experiment to work. What happened is in 2019, we then pitched to Google to build a big quantum computer. And the idea was to build a useful, error-corrected, general-purpose quantum computer by the end of the decade. Okay, so that's what, 2030. That's what we were all pitching for. But we're halfway through that decade, and it's times 2, and not times 20,000. I think that's the number. So we're going at a very slow rate. Just counting the qubit number doesn't tell you everything. But I would say what's great about the Google is they fix some coherence problems. The qubits are better. Things are getting better, as well as making more qubits. But if you were just to extrapolate 50 qubits to 100 qubits, when would you get to 1 million qubits? Well,
it's
I'm going to be dead, okay? That's the way I say. And I say that everyone in the audience will be retired at best, okay?
Exactly.
So clearly we have to increase the rate of, let's say, innovation. And the other thing in my talks is I talk about what we're doing right now and how I think this is kind of a dead end, and there's things you have to do better. So that's what, when I left Google and formed my own company, I really started thinking hard about that, and then we have a way to do that. It's a lot of things you have to change. But I'm going to say the most important one is that right now they're fabricating devices using, I would say, kind of an academic style process. And for people in Taiwan who are a little bit more knowledgeable, they're using something called liftoff, where you form a stencil, you evaporate your metal, and then you put it in acetone and it lifts off. This is technology of the 1960s. Okay. Right now, everyone deposits material and then etches it away. It's a way more reliable way to do it. So as an example, that's one of the things we're doing, and we have a lot of other ideas. So we want to completely change the way we're doing it. Now, because it's completely different, I think we're the only people who are really focusing on, or one of the few people who are focusing on that, because it's so different and it's not clear it's going to work. But we think for the health of our qubits, you have to do something bold. And you can't expect to get there with small incremental changes. So that's, I understand big corporations like Google or IBM or Amazon or Rigetti, it's a startup, they don't necessarily want to risk a big change, but that's what a small little startup like us can do. So that's what we're trying to, bring to technology. Now, one of the things we're doing with that is we're using a company called Applied Materials who makes the tools for the semiconductor industry. And they know how to make the custom tools that we need that are all state-of-the-art, with 300 millimeter, few years old processes, and how to put that together in a good way. And that's been very successful for us, although we're still working on, showing some definitive experiments that it works well.
Let's go back a little bit. There's other frustrations that you have been.
My physics capability has been undervalued. It's very hard to be a scientist because people's egos are involved. And my wife likes to say, she's not a physicist, that when you go to a party full of physicists, every physicist thinks he's the smartest person in the room.
Party.
Right? It's, I try not to think that way, but clearly, I've had a lot of success in my career, and I think that I have good ideas, and I get frustrated when that's not listened to. I understand. But you know, it's just hard. You know, whenever you try to do something that's very bold and different,
yes,
like, you know, and the one thing, if you talk to any Nobel Prize winners, they did something very different than everyone else was thinking about. So if you want to do science of impact, you're generally going to break ideas people already have. And that's inevitably hard, and inevitably people think weird, think differently, and get jealous, or I don't know, they feel uncomfortable about it.
So that is the biggest reward from winning Nobel Prize, because you prove that you think creatively and you were bold enough to do something different, right?
Right. Well, but yeah, and that was, you know, for the graduate school. And I would say we approached the experiment differently, and we did that. But I would say myself and Michel Devereux, John Clark, if you look at the whole career, we've always done, you know, different things. And especially in quantum computing, I was trying to build a quantum computer very differently than what was the standard thinking about that. And I was basically risking all my funding to do it that way because it was so different than everyone else. What is interesting is the various frustrations I've had, and that something always has come up that's better. Okay?
So you got proof.
This has happened 3 or 4 times in my career. It's very, very strange. Okay, and I'll give you the latest examples. The CEO and myself are Christians. In the beginning of October, we were starting to talk about how we had a new fundraising rate for our Series B. And this is hard, and you know, you have to talk to a lot of people, and you know, we're just trying to prepare ourselves for it. So at the end, we decided we would pray about it. And, you know, and it was, you know, we obviously wanted to pray for, you know, being success. But what I really liked about with Alan is what we wanted to do is do this in a way that was being truthful. We didn't want to hype what we were doing. We wanted to, you know, explain it well, and then meet the right kind of investors who believed in what we were doing. And just do this in the honest, right way, okay, in the way that we felt was compatible with how we were Christians. 2 days later, Nobel Prize.
2 days later.
2 days later.
48 hours later.
yeah, 2 days later. You know, with the Nobel Prize, it's been easier to raise money for our, you know, filling out our Series A and looking in the future. But I like to call that, it's the reason it works so well is now it's a celebrity endorsement. Now, what happened is when I had students at UCSB, they would do an experiment and it wouldn't work the way we wanted to. And what I tried to always tell them is that, well, we learned something very important, because if it doesn't work, that means our assumptions are wrong, or we're not understanding it, or something along that line. And try to emphasize that maybe when it doesn't work, you're learning more than when it does work. Learning something important and not obvious and unintuitive. So that's kind of always the way I've looked at it. The problem is when you go through and it doesn't work and doesn't work for a long time, you kind of have to know when to give up or when to, you know, keep pushing through. And it's always it's always kind of a difficult thing. And I would say that's what you need to kind of have experience on. You have to get a feeling for whether you're going to get it to work or not. In around 2010 or 2011, we had been doing lots of experiments at UC Santa Barbara, and then we wrote this surface code paper on how to build the architecture, and we had an idea of what to go forward. And the next 3, 4, 5 experiments, it just like worked right away. And we had done enough work prior to that, and enough experiments very carefully, that we kind of knew what we needed to know for the next few experiments. But that's a rarity as an experimentalist, that it works right. It means you're going in the right direction. And of course, in the end, you know, you got all the experiments, but then you kind of hit a wall. So I would say that all continued into the quantum supremacy experiment 2019. But I kind of figured at that point we had been very successful, and there are a lot of things we didn't quite understand yet. I wanted to really go back and think carefully about it.
Yes.
But then Google changed the management and I left, so I couldn't do that. But that's what led to our company. By doing a startup company, was forced to really think creatively, right?
Yes.
And you know,
sure.
that happens to people all the time. This is not just me. And that was very good for me. And you know, I enjoy the people we're working with. We have a culture that we really like and agree with. Everyone is working hard and being creative. So, you know, that's better in the long run. But we still have problems with raising funds. You know,
Yes.
we don't have a project as big as we had as Google. And
Sure.
and it's just harder to get things done. But we're focusing on the right things. So that's okay.
I think that is another part of our whole interview, because it's very important to talk about your startup, the collab.
Right.
Yeah, because apparently you want to be the game changer. That is ambitious, actually. So let's take a rest and we will move to another episode.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I really enjoyed talking.
Thank you.
We need to build it much more in the way that, let's say, TSMC
Yes.
builds it in Taiwan. Technologies got quite sophisticated, and then it went to what's called a more horizontal model. And we think that's the better model for the future.